Alrighty, folks, it is June. We hope that you had a happy summer solstice yesterday. This is always the hardest presentation because the days are the longest and those clouds finally burned off. But boy, are we excited to have Dana here tonight for Cocktails and Fishtales. Rock and roll with us all online. And we're so glad for those of you tuning in this evening. If you want to write in the comments where you are watching from, we'd love to know that, as well as if you're enjoying a cocktail or other fun beverage this evening. While you're getting kind of settled into wherever you're at, getting your screen situated how you want it, we always love to ask our presenters to share with us a cocktail that they enjoy, as well as a inspiring, funny, ridiculous, whatever adjective you want there, fishtale. So Dana, can you tell us about a cocktail and a fishtale that you enjoy?
Sure. Well, I'll share with you what I'm drinking tonight, which is like a Mulberry Cider. It's like a spritzer that has a little kick to it. So it doesn't come across too well with the lighting, but it's actually a beautiful shade of purple to match the little bit of purple in my bow tie and on my shirt. So, you know, color coordination all the way if I can. We did have to do a little switch out of bow ties just before this, just because I wanted to make sure I had the right bow tie for tonight that would match everything, right? We can't be off brand. I'm trying to think of like a
presentation when there's a bow tie switch just in the nick of time. So
just in the
goodness for Zoom. Go ahead.
So I'm trying to think of some good fishtales. You know, I grew up along the Oregon coast, and so we'd actually go out and do a lot of fishing out of a little town called Garibaldi, and my brother actually worked on a fishing boat out there. So I've done a lot of fishing in my life. I'd say probably my best fish tale would be many years ago when I was backpacking. I had tried to take like one of those collapsible poles to do some fishing up in the woods up in Colorado. And for some reason, my collapsible pole decided that it was going to break in half. I mean, it could have been that I stepped on it while putting things away in my camping gear, could have been. But I was still hungry and I wanted to try to figure out if I could try to still get some fish. So I actually was trying to fish with just the string, and I did that old cool thing where you tie it to a stick. I'd love to tell you that I was successful, but unfortunately it was not successful. I was really happy that I took tuna with me. So that's my fish tale, is that I tried to go fishing, didn't catch anything, but I still had some tuna fish with me. So that's what I got for you.
That is a lovely fish tale, Dana. Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, for those of you who are just tuning in, go ahead and let us know where you're watching from. And if you have a silly fish tale to share, or a cocktail or other beverage you'd like to write in the comments, that's good practice, because as this presentation gets going, I would love to have you put those questions in the comments so we can have Dana answer them live at the end of her presentation. So with that, Dana, again, we're so excited to have you. I know you've done so much work in the Pierce County community and beyond. Again, you're a very connected human, and I'm going to just fangirl out a little bit on the fact that I get to host you here tonight. I know you're about 6 months into being the Pierce Conservation District Executive Director, which is super exciting. They're lucky to have you, and we're so excited to hear more about what you got going on with the Pierce Conservation District. So with no further ado, we're so glad to have you, and I'll turn it your way.
Oh, well, thank you for that fantastic introduction. And let me say, I actually felt like I was fangirling in getting to be here and be a guest. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it. Okay, yes, please, pick me, let's do it. So I'm super grateful to be here. And just to give a little bit of history about who I am and kind of what my background is, I have a master's degree in weed science and plant pathology, which is always fun to have weed science on your diploma. Everybody loves to see that, especially a master's degree in it. I can't tell you the number of times that when I was in grad school, folks would come in and would say, hey, well, it says weed science, what you got in here? And so they were always very disappointed when I would actually just show them noxious weeds or invasive weeds rather than what they were hoping to see in our greenhouses. I spent 4 years working at the state Noxious Weed Control Board. And then I was lucky enough to actually be the director out at the Kitsap County Noxious Weed Control Board for about 15 years. So I've been around the area for quite a while. I've lived in Tacoma for most of that time, and I absolutely love Tacoma. love Pierce County, and I feel like I won the lottery getting to actually work with PCD. I've loved the work that the conservation districts do all over the nation, but also right here locally. My predecessor, Ryan Mello, was fantastic in his vision for what he wanted to see PCD be in our region. It was really great to be able to still get to work with him. So he's not out of the picture completely yet. Every once in a while I call him up and I say, I need some help, Ryan, help. And so he's been very gracious in helping out. So I feel blessed for that. I also am lucky enough to work with some fantastic folks at PCD. We've got employees that have been there. We had 2 employees actually just reach their 25-year mark this year, which is absolutely fantastic. And they are a wealth of knowledge. And how lucky am I that they've taken me under their wing, and we've all just kind of worked this together and worked through any of the hiccups that we've been having through the COVID-y times and as we're coming out of COVID-y times. I know many of us are excited to be done with COVID, but unfortunately, COVID's not quite done with most of us yet. I did just share that I'm actually happy that this is on Zoom or on the live stream, because I just had a pretty significant exposure yesterday to COVID. So I wouldn't have felt comfortable doing this in person. So I'm glad that we have this technology. So kind of shifting gears here a little bit, I'm going to share with you what we do at PCD and how you can be connected into the fantastic work that we do. So it's not just 1 or 2 things that we do in our organization, but we are lucky enough to work very closely with multiple groups in the fantastic work we do. So I'm going to start off with just a brief overview of who we are and why I'm so excited about what we actually embody as an organization. The Pierce Conservation District has been here for over 70 years. My board chairwoman loves to say we're not just your grandfather's conservation district. So conservation districts originally were just for farms, farm preservation, and water conservation. But then we also realized that those 2 things were not all of what we could do, that we could really do a lot more at conservation districts to conserve all natural resources. We believe that healthy lands, healthy streams, healthy forest, healthy fish all lead to healthy people, which leads us into having whole and healthy communities. Hopefully, you recognize that well, at least I am coming to you from the Puget Sound. Maybe some of you are not in the Puget Sound. I can't read the chat, so I'm not sure how far folks are chiming in from, but I'm coming to you from the city of Tacoma, which is in the Puget Sound. Puget Sound is part of what we actually are starting to refer to as the Salish Sea, because that's its actual original name. We know that this body of water stretches from Vancouver Island all the way down and into Olympia. And if you've ever tried to boat all of that, it's a good boat ride. I haven't, but my brother actually just did a few months ago and just kind of ran the whole waves for a few days. So first and foremost, I want to recognize that where I am at, I am gathered, or we are all gathered here in the traditional current homelands of the Coast Salish people. I acknowledge that their sovereign governments have stewarded this land from time immemorial. And when we talk about those things, we talk about all connections of natural resources. And in fact, on a personal level, I don't like using the word natural resources because it feels like we're taking away from things. So I like to call it more of the natural beauty or bounty of our region. We know that this area has been a vital piece of the ecosystem here, both in Tacoma and all of the Puget Sound region. And I'm going to focus in, obviously, on Pierce County area. We know that the wildlife and native plants here are unique in our region, and that they all play a vital role in the diet of the indigenous populations that have been here, creation of their homes, and very critical roles in culture and spirituality. I feel lucky enough to actually be in a space where the tribes of the Puyallup, Muckleshoot, Nisqually, and Squaxin Island have all resided and have brought their culture, their energy, their love, and their compassion for the land. And I am excited to be able to be a part of that. We know that Puget Sound is a very large region that is quickly growing. The first picture I put up here is what communities used to look like. So you've got the longhouses and how people lived a little more, I would say, symbiotic with the land. And then you've got a beautiful picture of Tacoma. Now, let me be clear. I love this picture of Tacoma. It has a little bit of everything that makes my heart happy. You've got Rainier in the background. You've got the dome. You've got the art museum, you've got the Museum of Glass, and you've got the History Museum, all in one great shot. And the beauty is that these areas are great for us to live in, but unfortunately are not super great oftentimes for the environment. If you look at the photo on the bottom, you'll notice that there's a lot of impervious surfaces. So there's a lot of places where water can't get into the soil and have direct contact and filter through. Now, we also know that when we've taken photos of this region, we have LiDAR photos of where the forested areas have been. And you can notice that those forested areas start to get less and less and less. And coming up into 2011, we have what I refer to now as pocket forests that are kind of pocketed here and there throughout our region, but are not contiguous forested areas. And we know that we play a part in this. And so we also have to play an active part in fixing any of the problems that maybe we've brought with us. So how does the conservation district actually work? And I mean, really, who even knows what a conservation district is? So if you know what a conservation district is, I want you to put a thumbs up in the chat so that we can get an idea of who already knows what we're doing. And if you know, I'm just going to go ahead and skip the whole talk and we can just chat about other things. Oh, okay, no. So the conservation district is an opportunity for you to get involved locally in the process of what happens for agricultural systems historically and now natural resource systems as we've evolved. Conservation districts started during the dirty 30s. We knew that there were these dust bowls that were happening and scientists just didn't know what to do about it. They were overwhelmed and they didn't know how we could address the problem. And I don't know about you, but looking at the photo on the bottom with that big dust storm in the background, that's supposed to be the soil that grew our food. And I like to eat. I think most of us like to eat. And unfortunately, what was happening was that so much of the vital soil was blowing literally away because it didn't have enough resources to hold it on site. Water was limited. And then as soon as the dust started blowing away, the nutrients that were needed for farming were also becoming limited. We know that when the Dust Bowl hit, there was a huge shift of humans migrating from the farm into the cities because they just couldn't farm anymore. So we know that this left many, many people homeless, and it left almost all of the population in a desperate space for trying to feed themselves. Franklin D. Roosevelt and a few of his folks looked at this and said, we've got to do something. We can't have a starving nation. And we're going to bring some of the best folks together to come up with an opportunity to save the soil, save our farmlands, and save all the people within our regions. So Roosevelt created the Conservation District. It was founded in 1949. And the goal was to actually create regional boards that would do regional work to preserve farmland within a specific area. So rather than it being a federal organization that did the top-down market rule, it actually went from the bottom up. We actually got to say that we're from the Conservation District and we're here to help. We're a government agency that actually helps people and helps communities thrive. We're a subdivision of state government. Yes, we have an RCW. If you're ever super challenged to fall asleep, if you're dealing with some insomnia, I encourage you to download 89.08. And I can tell you from experience that within the first 2 pages, I may fall asleep. But the great news is that this will tell you a lot about what we do and how we are governed within the state of Washington, and then also the governance that folds in from the federal level also. We are board driven. So it's not just me who gets to make decisions as the executive director, but we actually have a board of supervisors. And our board meets every month to get together to figure out what the priorities are within our specific region. We are actually in the middle of a cycle where you too could become a board member. I believe that our elections are still open right now. If you can't become a board member right now, you can at least still vote in our board process. Our votes are collected, I believe it's August 10th. I should probably know that one a little bit better, but I think it's August 10th that the elections close. So you can get a ballot and you can actually choose who helps govern the boards that actually make the decisions here in the Pierce Conservation District area. The other great thing is that we are non-regulatory. So we're not going to tell you that you have to do something. Our job is to actually come in and help you steward your land. We work with extension agents, so we work with WSU Extension and other research facilities to come up with the best science to fix the problems that are in your own backyard. We believe that the power of what we do is in the process of getting our boots on the ground. We'll walk your property with you. We'll point out things that we think we should help you fix to help preserve water quality and to help make sure that we are all living in the best space possible. Water quality issues don't just impact, the water that we drink, but it does impact directly the fish. And we also have a program that we most recently started off. Rob is heading it up. It's called the Orcas Love Rain Gardens, because we know that any drop of water that hits anywhere in this area goes directly into our sound. So we know that if we can keep the water clean, we can keep our salmon healthy and our orca healthy too. We also get to provide technical and fiscal assistance to landowners. So we've got some really great mini grants that if you've got an area that you want to see if you can actually qualify for our mini grants, you could get a mini grant to put a rain garden in your own backyard. So you too could have a beautiful rain garden that helps protect the salmon and orcas right in your backyard. And you don't need a lot of space for this. Rain gardens can actually be made on a larger scale, but also on a very small scale. I know I was lucky enough when I first bought my house is that I dug a trench and I started planting plants in there. And I didn't really know all the science around rain gardens, but I realized that when I started researching it, I had basically made my own rain garden without necessarily planning on doing that. But luckily that little area, I worked with some folks with natural resources groups and we made it an actual rain garden. So I was super excited about that. So most of us who are here know that there are some amazing challenges that we all face. We know that the area that we are living in is constantly inundated with all kinds of complex issues. We know that natural resources isn't just one thing, but it is literally the web that binds all of us. We know that in order for us to be a we need to have farmland preservation. We need to make sure that we are reducing pollution, and we need to acknowledge the role that we play in climate change. We also have the opportunity to save endangered salmon, fix destroyed habitat, and help create food in areas that we refer to as food deserts. So our mission and vision of the Conservation District is to equitably support community-driven solutions to our most pressing local environmental challenges. We believe that it is only with a thriving ecosystem that we can create resilient communities. We know that with every plant we plant, we're not just planting a tree, but we're actually planting community within our area. We have five major focuses for our programs. We work with habitat improvement. So this is a group that's actually evaluating a stream bed so that we can re-meander this, so that we can get great habitat for salmon. We work with food security. We realize that not everyone has access to freshly grown food. And so we have about 86 different community gardens all throughout Pierce County. We work directly with farmers in planning agricultural projects and helping farmers put buffers around streams. We directly work with water quality through rain gardens and other stormwater management. And we do a lot of environmental education because we know that if we're not educating the next generation, we've all missed the boat. So we know that if we get kids on board, they'll actually be the ones to champion all the work that we do. But in all of this, we also recognize that in the past, we've maybe not been a great advocate for equity and inclusion. And so over the last many years, this has been one of the driving pieces that we've really strived for within our programs. We believe that equity and inclusion is imperative, and we strive to serve all residents of Pierce County. We also recognize that we recognize that people of color, Indigenous communities, and low-income people are often most left behind when the environmental revolutions happen. These are the people who bear the brunt of the burden of taking on areas that many of those who have the abilities leave behind. We are fully committed to serving all of Pierce County. And in fact, we've done a great deal of work within the Hilltop region to recognize areas that needed more trees. We know that last year during the heat wave, we had that heat dome, that the majority of the extremely high temperatures were actually in the Hilltop area because they have more concrete and they have fewer trees. And so this last year, the water quality team headed up a few projects to actually put trees in the ground all throughout Hilltop, which was fantastic. There's also just another project that was in a couple of the other, what I call the tree deserts. So it's not just food deserts, but the tree deserts throughout Pierce County. Now, the great thing is that if you'd like to put a tree in your own backyard, we actually have a massive tree sale every year that you can come and get some native plants at a reduced cost. And that normally happens in January. This year we had it in April because we were hoping to get folks excited after post-COVID. So you'll be able to sign up for getting information about our tree sale if you go to our website, and I'll give you that link at the very end. So we strive for excellence within our program, which, I mean, I've yet to hear somebody say that they don't strive for excellence within their programs, especially during presentations. If you ever hear that in a presentation, let me know, because I would be interested in asking that person what they strive for if it's not excellence. But we work to actually bring as much knowledge to community members here in the Pierce region. We're always open for improvement. So if we're doing something and you're like, well, I don't know if that's really the best way to do it, we are adaptive and we are willing to actually take some feedback and say, you know what, how can we do this better and how can we serve our communities better? We believe that we should learn from our mistakes. If we've done something wrong, how can we fix it and how can we make things right? And we know that if we listen to our community is going to tell us what they need us to do. We work to be extremely collaborative. We work with the city of Tacoma. We work with the city of Puyallup. And we actually just had an opportunity to work with the city of Milton. So we've got lots of different groups that are reaching out to us to collaboratively work to put in trees, to put in rain gardens. And my favorite, there are some groups that we're working with to remove invasive weeds. So that's always still at the forefront of what I love to do. We know that we can't just separate projects or programs because everything is connected. The natural resources don't know the boundaries. Our core programs are out of what used to be our historical process, which is farm assistance and water quality. Water quality has actually evolved over the last few years. It used to be water quality on farms, but we recognize that water quality is an important issue to everyone, either on or off the farm. We also recognize that only 1.3% of our population right now still lives on a farm. So if only 1.3% of our populations live on a farm, we need to actually help everyone improve water quality, whether you're on the farm or in the city. Along with that, we help with habitat improvement projects. So we actually go out to stream areas or other natural areas and help plant in trees and remove weeds. And I'm plugging this one because you too can come with us and join us. This doesn't just have to be a presentation where you just listen to me talk, but you can get involved and we can set you up with one of our restoration sites. We've got some phenomenal opportunities coming up in the next couple of weeks where you can get your hands dirty and you can get your boots on the ground with us too. One of the programs that I absolutely love is the Harvest Pierce County program. This is a program that the team has put together and has just grown this leaps and bounds. There are 80 plus gardens throughout the area that grow food for not just the individuals within the gardens, but also they donate back some of their food every year too. And as I spoke before, it's really important to do environmental education. If we're not educating the next generation as to what we're doing, I think we've really just not helped anyone out. I go with the idea of what our Indigenous partners share with us, which is always be prepared for 7 generations. And what that means is that we have to continually educate the generations below us. And not in just an educational way of where we're telling them what they should do, but it's actually a collaborative education. And we give them the opportunity to tell us what we should do also. And then one of the areas that we've been really lucky to kind of break into in the last few years is climate resiliency. We know that we've had a lot of fires in our region in the last many years. And with those fires comes poor air quality and then also just devastation of our natural forests. So we have a program that focuses on climate resiliency and has a fire-wise focus. And this year we got some funding, and one of our team members, Nick, has actually already done 2 presentations to folks who kind of live in the rural areas about how they can prepare their properties to be resilient when fires come through. We also have a program where we help folks evaluate if their farms are the right fit for one of our farm solar projects. So I like to end the programs and ask, what can we do together? You've heard a lot about what I do, but my hope would be that this inspires all of us to figure out how we can work together. We know that it doesn't just take one person doing one thing, but it takes all of us doing a little bit of everything to make our ecosystems happy, healthy, and whole. So I encourage each of you to go to our website, check out more of the opportunities that we have. And if we don't have something that you think we should be doing, don't hesitate to send us a quick email and say, hey, you know what? Have you thought about kind of jumping and branching into this other opportunity too? So I'm going to leave it open for questions. Stina, I saw you were kind of watching the chat. Was there anything that came up that I just charged right through?
Oh, you did a fabulous job, Dana. Thank you so much for giving us everything to know about Pierce Conservation District, and just the kind of the history on conservation districts in general was kind of fun to hear. Somehow or another, our Facebook chat line got flagged for community standards thing. I think it's because I said cheers at the end of, no, I really have no idea.
Did we say weed?
Oh, maybe our weed jokes could have done it. Oh, bummer. So I was kind of trying to figure out how to make that work, but noxious weeds are important to talk about Facebook, let it be known. So I don't have any questions coming in from the chat because that got disabled on us. And so I'm kind of curious how, I think, yeah, we'll just kind of at some point end the Zoom meeting and all. But some questions I have for you, just because I guess I get you all to myself here.
I should have been on the comfy couch. We could have just had a comfy couch chat.
Right? I'm like, okay, people, if you want to text me, no, just kidding. I'm not going to give you my phone number.
Do not give out your phone number.
But, and I can't see if I know the humans, but I'm like, I'll stay on. My phone is open. If you know my number, you can shoot me a question or Dana a question, I guess. But yeah, this is a first for our online cocktails and Fishtales. I'm glad we're staying COVID safe. This does make kind of a conundrum there. I do want to say, I was in my going to comment, you mentioned Rob with the Orchids Love Rain Gardens program. Yes. And so I was just going to fan over Rob a little bit because we've gotten to do some exciting, I guess maybe it was before he was with Pierce Conservation District, but Harbor Wild Watch has teamed up to do some rain garden restorations over at some different schools. And so I guess they want to say cheers to that program and all the good work y'all are doing to reduce harmful runoff, because that's a bummer when it comes to the health of the Puget Sound and Greater Salish Sea.
Well, and Stina, you might know a little more than I do, but I know that there was a report that came out just a few years ago talking about the toxins that come off of both the tires and the oil, that those are the primary toxins that we're finding in our salmon streams when we're doing water quality testing. Could you fill me in a little bit on that?
Yeah, so based off of what I learned from the Salish Sea Ecosystem Conference, there was a lot of really good presentations, and I'm not going to remember the alphabet number soup that is the specific chemical, but there was a lot of evidence that shows that tires are indeed like super detrimental to salmon. So if you need a reason to drive the speed limit, not braking a lot, it's definitely helpful. But yeah, there's not good news when it comes to tires and fish. And I know there's the Washington Scuba Alliance is doing some cool work to actually remove tires from places in the Puget Sound. And so there's a lot of, oh, tires, what a great way to reduce reuse. We'll just use these chunks of rubber as reefs. And turns out maybe that wasn't the best idea.
Well, and this is where, like, even in my presentation, we talked about adaptability, right? So like we may do things a certain way, but the reality is that we all need to be adaptable to like learn new science and learn that maybe what we thought was a good way to do something in the past is not the best way to do something now. I think even in the agricultural world, we learned that the hard way, right? We did that huge industrial push where we were using a lot of pesticides, and we recognized, well, wait a minute, this is not healthy for our ecosystems or us as humans either. And so we started really adapting our management strategies and realizing that we could still use a little bit of pesticides. Sometimes we still have to in some of these areas, but that reduction of that is critical to actually just keeping our systems healthy.
Totally. Yeah. I think, maybe that's a fun question of like, in a world where change is slow, like how do you implement the latest technology or the latest new finding of things? Is that something that Pierce Conservation District can be pretty reactive or adaptable to? Or maybe it seems like you're also proactive in a lot of your programming. But
and I would actually, I would lean into that a little bit more. We're super proactive, and when we see a problem, we start to already in office. You can see people's heads cranking as to how can we fix this or how can we actually work with that. I am lucky enough to just work with some brilliant individuals that have their minds going almost all of the time to come up with really good solutions. So we can be adaptive. I will say that we are a government agency, so sometimes getting that needle to move quickly is challenging, but we've been able to figure it out, I think, for the most part. We know that, again, the most important thing is the boots on the ground process of what we do. And so that allows us to be a lot more adaptable. We're not just like, we aren't the policy creators, but we are the ones who are literally making change happen every single day on the ground. So we have that ability to shift a little bit and to change the process. And when we change the process on the ground, that information does go up the chain and get into the policy side of it too. So we are constantly looking for how we can be innovative, how we can bring in new research. The great thing is that we work pretty closely with universities and other institutions to figure out how we can best serve the community here in the Pierce district.
Awesome. Well, I'm just also thinking of like Chris Tao and, at the very beginning of the pandemic when we were able to do a Zoom lesson about stream invertebrates. So kind of having that educational piece there too is, I don't know. You're a well-rounded group, I think.
It is a powerhouse group. It's not just well-rounded. The group that I am lucky enough to work with, I just feel blessed every day I go into work. I feel super lucky. I have to pinch myself most days. So you talked about Chris Tao. And so this little picture up here, this is actually one of Chris's projects. So this is the Salmon in the Classroom project, where they were raising salmon in a couple of schools. And then they brought the kids out to Swan Creek to actually release the salmon so that they could finish their life cycle. So Chris has been just amazing to work with out there. Our AmeriCorps team has been fantastic. That is the one thing that I would actually just kind of give huge shout outs to our AmeriCorps teams and our Washington conservation crews. They have done such a phenomenal job of implementing a lot of the work, but also being innovative. Like they are always looking for new ways to do things, and they're bringing it forward, and we attempt it and see if it works. And then we see if we can do those changes in our system, or if it doesn't work, we just say, hey, that was a great idea. Let's try something different. But I think, you know, for me, it really is such a great opportunity. We work with, you know, every section of the county. We work literally from the mountains all the way down to the edge of the sound. This is the site. This is actually with the tribe. This is at the canoe landing. And this is an invasive species removal, but we're removing invasive species in anticipation of putting in a new rain garden here too. You'll notice that there's a lot of concrete on this site. One of the reasons why there is some solid concrete is that there's maybe a little bit of toxic stuff under that concrete. So we don't want to remove that, but we know that if we can put in some rain gardens, we can actually start filtering anything that, any of the oils that may be on this, it can get filtered into our rain gardens, and then the clean water can go out into the sound.
Awesome. We'll call you a bunch of watershed wonder humans.
Yeah. Well, and then we've got Mary, who's working on the shoreline work. She is fantastic. So she's out at Demolay Spit working on removing some bulkheads out there. We've just got a little bit of everything.
How did I not mention Mary? Because we are working directly with Harbor Wild Watch. It's like, we're like high-fiving with Mary. And if you're interested, we'll be out on the beach on June 28th to do some beach monitoring there that directly relates to that shoreline armoring. So
see, look at that.
Boom.
I figured you would maybe get there, but I made sure to bring her in.
Good job. Yeah, thank you. I'm like, how did I not mention Mary? Yeah.
Now, I wish that I had enough time to highlight all of my staff. I've been lucky enough when I first came on board. For those of you who don't know me, I used to do, during the pandemic, I did a mug club Monday. So every Monday I take a picture with a mug. And so my first few months on the job, I had mug clubs with all of my staff. And I can't tell you the number of times I would come home and I would just be like, how am I this lucky to get to work with these amazing people? So they make our organization look great. And I just feel extremely lucky to work with them and engaged and encouraged, right? Like they encourage me to want to do better as a leader just because of the fact that I know that they are so amazing, that I want to make sure that I can do everything I can for them as a leadership person could or should do. And, you know, we all just work together.
Powerhouse team. I love it. And we are very thankful and so grateful to partner with you all in a variety of ways. And it's fun to, you know, as they say, teamwork makes the dream work. So go
sure
team
does.
here.
Yeah, I had looked at actually trying to put together a graphic of like all the groups that we work with, and it literally wouldn't fit on the page. And I thought that environmental connection where it showed everybody connected was crazy, but us actually putting together who all we work with is pretty crazy too.
Yeah, but it's important work, and there's a lot of critical changes that need to happen to make sure that the water stays quality for all these different things. So it's, as you mentioned, it's all connected. So thank you.
It is. And again, I'll put in a final or another plug that if there's something that we're not doing that you think we should be, you just let us know and we'll try to figure out a way to do it. We do have volunteer opportunities all throughout it feels like every weekend. I think I've made it to at least one event every weekend since I started. So I feel like if you haven't found us somewhere, tell us where we should be, and then you'll find us there next week.
So now I'm going to be like, you're at like one event every weekend, more like 7 events every weekend. I think you're everywhere. So
I maybe made it to like 4 events in one day the other day.
The schedule Tetris is strong for you there, I see. Well, with that, I just want to say thank you again so much for joining us for Cocktails and Fishtales this June. It's really a delight to hear about all the great work Pierce Conservation is doing, and they're lucky to have a super rad leader like you. So with that, I will turn it back over to you to see if you have any last closing thoughts before we go ahead and sign off here.
So I think the last closing thought I will leave us all with is the thing that I constantly think about is that it's not necessarily about solving all of the problems all at once, but it's about doing one thing a day. So you don't need to do everything, but if there's literally one thing you can do a day to make an impact, just do that. If it's, if you've not been an avid, recycler, I know that sounds weird to this group, but there's still some of those folks out there. If you haven't been an avid recycler, just recycle. If you're out for a walk and you happen to see a little piece of trash on the ground, pick up one piece of trash, because if we pick it up off the ground, it's not going to go into our system and then out to the sound. So my parting words would be, do one thing a day to make our community better. And if you'd like that one thing a day to be volunteering with us, our website is there also.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dana. And
thank you so much for hosting. This has been fantastic.
Drop counts, so.
Every drop counts. That's right.
Awesome. For those of you tuning in, also just a shout out to you. Thanks for watching this evening. And if you do have questions, you can either email me at stina@harborwildwatch.org, and I'll make sure to get you connected. But yeah, Pierce Conservation District website also seems like a good way to get those questions over there. So sorry about the mix up in the comments, but
I promise the next time I just won't say weed so much.
But it was so funny. It's a good, yeah. Noxious weeds, we got to take care of them.
We do, yeah. And again, I've offered this for many of my talks. If you'd like me to come back and do an invasive species talk, I can definitely, I may have a slide deck for that.
We'll push record on the actual Zoom meeting just in case for that. And yeah, we'll talk noxious weeds again soon. It sounds like I would be interested in learning more.
There we go. And it all does relate to water quality and salmon.
Totally does. So I'm gonna virtually cheers you, and we'll go ahead and sign off here. Thanks, Dana.
Thank you.